It's 10 Count Vlog!
Hello and welcome to 10 Count Podcast. I'm your host Jason Tiller, and I have to say, it's a pleasure to be bringing you yet another episode in this, the most sacred of all weeks to sports entertainment fans around the world, WrestleMania week. I have to say, it's off to a great start. NXT TakeOver Dallas last night was pretty much amazing. I think Mania is going to have a hard time topping it. Easily the match of the night went to Shinsuke Nakamura and Sami Zayn. I think that may even qualify for Match of the Year at this point. Despite all the crazy stuff going on this weekend in WWE, we're here to talk local and indie wrestling, and our guest this week is a man who works both behind the scenes and does some absolutely insane ring work for Tri-State Wrestling, none other than Stephen Mitchell, A.K.A Zane Arkham. This guy has some amazing stories from his time in the ring that he's going to share with us, but he's also taken us into the locker room at TSW to tell us about the culture and the brotherhood amongst the guys in the company. He'll also share some of his personal battles with us and maybe get into some predictions for Sunday night. Before we move on, I have to once again thank Rollick for allowing us to use their music in our podcast absolutely free of charge. If you like it, be sure to check them out by clicking on the links on this article at 10countblog.wordpress.com. With that being said, here is the 10 Count Podcast interview with Stephen Mitchell. Steve, how are you today?
Pretty good. How about yourself, Jason?
I am doing very well. Glad to have you here. This is the second podcast we've done at my house. I can't believe it. I've had more wrestlers in my house than ever.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me. It's great here.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So let's just get right into it. Start at the beginning. What sparked your interest in wrestling? You know, were you a fan at a young age, or who were some of your heroes? Same question I actually started off with Johnny last week.
Well, the funny thing is, a lot of people, they talk about how they started with Hogan and Andre and people like that. I actually didn't get into wrestling until about the Attitude Era. I lived a pretty sheltered life, didn't watch much TV at a young age. So I started out in the Attitude Era. I love Austin, The Rock. I loved watching WCW, too. The Monday Night Wars was where, really sparked my interest into wrestling. And I have to say that, I was one of those people that even though sometimes WCW would tell what was happening on Raw, I'd still switch back and forth between the two shows just to watch both things, both parts. So that was my biggest thing is, just watching wrestling, starting there, right there. That's what sparked my interest into everything. I didn't get into the ring until several years later. I actually had an offer to get into Tri-State Wrestling when it first started. But at the time, I was a general manager running a business, working 50, 60 hours a week, and I didn't feel like I could take any time off, so I turned the offer down. But after that, I joined the military, kind of went on my own thing, got injured, got discharged, came home, and the same guy that offered me the job at TSW beforehand came back. He's like, hey, I know you love wrestling. We talk about wrestling. We work together. I have this company. You need to come. And that's actually Fuzz Malachi. And he brought me in. I met Barry. I met a bunch of the guys back then, and started training with the company, and then just been in love with it since.
So, talk a little bit about your involvement with TSW. Just kind of sitting here telling stories all night. You've had some interesting travels with TSW. Talk a little bit about some of the most memorable parts of that.
Yeah, Tri-State Wrestling, we travel. We try to go wherever the needy people are. We've been to Monroe City, been to Mount Carmel. We've been to Princeton at the Chaos Festival. We've been to Lagodi. Vincennes is our home, but we do a lot of traveling shows. When I first started with the company, we only had one show a month. Right now, we're only at one show a month, but this is our slow season. It's the winter seasons. Our summer months, we're packed, normally 4 or 5 weekends, and one of them's at the Eagles, the rest of them are traveling. Bicknell, I've seen some crazy things. I've seen some great matches all over the state. Mount Carmel, I've seen people like Johnny Watts, which you had at the last podcast, Johnny Watts versus Drake Graven. Saw one of the best Canadian destroyers I've ever seen, which we all know that Zach Hogan uses now. And I take nothing away from Zach. I face Zach. I know what he's capable of. But that was probably one of the best Canadian destroyers I've ever seen. And I just love traveling to these new places and meeting new people and being able to help them all.
So talk to me a little bit about your role within TSW. We all know, well, those of us who follow TSW know that Coach Powers plays the director of operations, but you are kind of the man behind the scenes along with Barry. Talk a little bit about some of the stuff you do behind the scenes as far as booking and some of the storyline development that you're involved with.
Well, like you said, I'm kind of the man behind the scenes. I in the ring when I'm not injured or anything. I run the shows pretty much. I'm the one that sets up the sound equipment. I set up all the music. I download music. Me and Barry work together to write up the cards, the storylines. I'm in charge of the training, making sure the trainees are doing what they're supposed to be doing. I'm the one that goes over the card with the wrestlers and everything. Like you said, Coach is the director of operations in front of the curtain. I'm kind of the director of operations. We just call it the booker. I'm the booker behind the scene. I interact with a lot of people on a daily basis. I also help Barry try to set up new venues and new charities. So me and him are always busy. I also run the TSW Facebook page. I run the Twitter account. I run our online store. I design stuff for the online store. I stay busy. I spend maybe 8 hours a day at work, and then the rest of it is wrestling and trying to create the next story or the next event, making sure it's just as big and spectacular as the last one.
So where do your best storylines and characters come from?
Honestly, it comes from a joint thing. I never take full credit for anything by myself because that would be a lie. I talk to the wrestlers, I talk to Barry, and we all work together. I mean, there's some guys that no longer work for the company, but they had a big part in helping me create some of the best storylines. Sam Knight, I'll throw that one out, and Xander Kelly, some of the greatest guys that have walked through TSW. But I tend to have an open door policy, even though I don't metaphorically have a door. I tell everybody, if you've got an idea, shoot it to me. I'm just like Vince McMahon. If you've got something, come to me, and we'll work it out. Sometimes people don't bring me a well-polished object, but we'll sit there and we'll work something out to where it makes sense and it'll work, and then we just go from there. I mean, TSW is a company built on everybody. We're a big group family. We're a giant family. I mean, I talk to everybody on a daily basis. They all check on me and everything, and I check on them. But yeah, it takes a lot of people to put on a TSW show. Me and Barry may be the guys that run the majority of it, but it's everybody chipping together to create an awesome thing.
So talk to me about some of the more memorable storylines you've been involved with, whether it's from the booking standpoint or whether it's from something you've been in personally, because for those who don't know, Steve also wrestles as Zane Arkham, and he has some great matches, had seen a few great ones myself. So talk a little bit about some of the best storylines that you've been involved with from, let's just say from both the booking and the wrestling perspective.
All right, from the wrestling perspective, I have to say the greatest storyline that I've been in was the one with Zach Hogan. We had a storyline that went on for 9 months. He's the reason why I used to be, before you started, I used to be the director of operations in front of the curtains also. In the storyline, Zach Hogan at the time was the Southern champion, and he put his title on the line, and I put my job in TSW as the director of operations on the line, and I lost. He won, so I got fired as the director of operations. Well, at the time, Bareback Jack, being the fresh GM, had not sided with Sweet Daddy B, and he brought me back as a wrestler a couple months later. When that happened, me and Zach continued our feud again. We got right back into it. We had some crazy, crazy matches that ended in another Southern title opportunity in a hardcore rules match. He brought a chair to the ring that says, "Die Zane, die, rest in peace." And he legit beat me to death with that thing, but it was a great match. Me and him we took each other to a new limit, and I couldn't be more proud of what Zach has accomplished in the TSW on his own right. When he came into the company, he was still really green and everything with wrestling in general. We gave him an opportunity, and he ran with it, and he did phenomenal with it. And we told him, hey, this is your opportunity, don't blow it, and he didn't. He ran with it. From a booking standpoint, probably one of my favorite storylines was with Sam Knight and Xander Kelly. Xander Kelly was the TSW champion. Sam Knight was working his way to take the title. These two gentlemen, Xander Kelly was trained at the Shawn Michaels School, and Sam Knight was trained at Rikishi's Knox Pro. So they both have, WWE training background, and they were just some of the greatest talents. And these two guys created a story where everybody wanted to see them fight. Everybody wanted to see them wrestle. And they never had a match until their title match. But they kept the story alive with their interactions and everything. And I mean, they just did a phenomenal job building the storyline and then having it come to an amazing end. I mean, it was overall just great from a booking standpoint. They had a lot of involvement in the booking and how the things progressed. And, I was kind of the silent auctioneer of just getting everything into position. But that would have to be, from a booking standpoint, one of my favorite matches ever booked.
So you mentioned WWE. You mentioned a couple guys have had WWE training. And I don't want to sit here and just disparage WWE, because they're obviously the best. They've been doing it for years and years, and that's why they've stayed around, is because they're one of the best. But right now, you mentioned this earlier while we were talking, the indie scene is just so hot right now. It is a great time to be in the indie scene, and I think that's because WWE has become so stale. There's not really flow to their matches. Talk a little bit about, behind the scenes, what you like to do when it comes to booking matches and making sure that there's flow there and making sure the storylines make sense.
Well, I was taught when I first got into this business, when I first started taking bookings, that there's a way to write a card, and everything has to make sense. Gone are the ways of the first match where it's just jobbers going out there and getting over. The first match sets up everything. If you don't have an amazing first match, then the rest of the card kind of just has to make up for that, and it makes it hard, and it makes them lose what they're really supposed to be doing. So, when it comes down to, you said the WWE is stale, and it is. I mean, I love the NXT, but, that's Triple H's doing, and the indie scene is really hot. I support indie wrestling. I love indie wrestling. I think indie wrestling is where it's all at. We've got some of the great companies around here, and I talk to a lot of the promoters and everything, and they're the same way. They believe, that a proper card and a proper execution of said card is what makes everything so great. I tend not to try to take control of everybody's matches. I let them all decide and work their own stuff out. I just let them know where I want it to go, and then they design around that. And that's one thing I really love about our locker room, is we just have an amazing locker room of boys that just want to establish and show the type of product we have is amazing for being a low promotion or an indie promotion. And we've got some guys that travel all over the world, travel in from all over the tri-state area, and they give it their all every time they step into the ring. And it doesn't matter if it's 4 people or 104 people, they're out there just giving it their all. And that's, I think, the biggest thing that sets us apart, is that we have people that love and cherish this business and go out there and try to make everything so new and fresh.
And I imagine it's really good for locker room morale that guys do have the freedom to book their own finishes, to say, hey, here's what I think we should do, and this makes sense for the storyline, or here's what I think would really put our storyline over. Talk a little bit about the chemistry in the locker room that your booking style creates.
Well, it's not even just what my booking style creates. Is I've been with Tri-State Wrestling going on 8 years now. In June, it'll be my 8-year mark. I've been here. I've seen the old locker room, the egos, and the cliques, if you want to call them, the little group of guys where it's like 2 or 3 set here, 2 or 3 set here, 2 or 3 set here. And nobody interacts and nobody talks to each other. Nobody really cares. They're all about themselves. The locker room we have now has got some of the greatest guys and girls, I will admit. We don't have a lot of female wrestlers. We do have one, Chloe, that comes up every once in a while. She's phenomenal. But, the wrestlers' girlfriends do come back there, and a lot of them know what's going on. And they're part of the family, too. And we have a lot of group of guys. We have an amazing group of guys that interact with each other and help build each other. We've got veterans that want to help the new guys get better. And we have veterans that know they're veterans but don't act like veterans. They act like just a normal person where even though they have more years than me in the business, they still take my advice and other people's advice, as long as it makes sense. And we all work together to do this. And, beforehand, like I said, we had the little cliques, and now it's just a massive locker room of like 30 guys that are working to build each other up and to help each other design their characters. There's always a lot of the new guys will ask the veterans for advice on not only, in-ring stuff, but merchandise, gear, traveling, stuff like that. And everybody gives their ear. And that's the one thing, like I said, I love. Tri-State Wrestling has, by hands down, the best locker room out there. We do not have any egos. Everybody is all about helping each other and the company. There's been guys that have been willing to bring in Rikishi and stuff like that on their own dime. It's just, I'm nothing against big names. I'd love to bring in big names. But the thing that I've established with TSW is I want us to create our own big names. I want people to come to see our guys, not because of people from the WWE or something else, which, like I said, I don't take anything away from all of them. It's just, I want them to come see homegrown talent do what they love in front of the people they love.
And that's a great segue into my next question. You talk about the homegrown talent, and I'll never forget this. March's Proving Grounds, I was there and got there early to do my first ever podcast with Barry, which was awesome. It was a great experience. But I get there, and you're in the ring, you're coaching up all these young guys, all these trainees, as Barry called them. And it looks like you run kind of a tight ship. I mean, I can tell that there is definitely some military background there. By the way, thank you for your service in the Army. But it's really neat to watch you train with these guys. And you say, that the veterans and the rookies all have great chemistry and they all help one another. And that was very evident by watching you in the ring. Talk a little bit about your coaching experience and training these guys and kind of the family atmosphere there is. Because, we had Will Bray in the ring helping out. You had Excalibur. Zach Hogan was in there for a little while, just helping these guys out and helping you out. And you could really tell that there was just this family mentality there.
Yeah, I've been training with the TSW. I've been in charge of training for the TSW for about 4 years. Everybody used to think that I wasn't ready to train with only having 4 years under my belt, but I love the guys that come train because me, Barry, can pick out the guys that have got the heart for this business and the look and everything like that, and it is all about look. And sometimes we can be wrong, but, it is about having heart and focusing and staying focused, and I do run a tight ship, and that's not to say because of anything that they've done wrong. It's actually from what I've learned is I only had 4 days of training, and I had my first match. I was decent. I knew how to bump. I knew how to throw some stuff together, but at the same time, I wasn't ready, and I want to make sure that when these guys step into the ring, they're ready and they don't get injured. I've been plagued with hundreds of injuries over the past 8 years, and I've got a lot of built-up scar tissue and stuff like that, and I don't want these guys to have the same thing. I want these guys to be able to go, 20, 30 years in this business because I see the fire and the drive between them, in them, to do this, and that's why I have the fire and drive that I have, is because I want to make their dreams come true just like my dreams came true. So I'm very strict on them, but they do realize that I'm only doing it to be to help them out in the long run. Like you said, we do have Will Bray and Excalibur and them. All the veterans, they come in and they help on their own accord. I never ask anybody. I normally run training by myself, and I have no problem running training by myself. Right now I can't really do any bumps or anything, but so these guys are stepping in to help me because of the things that I'm going through, and they're just phenomenal guys. I mean, they've been in the business a while. They know where I want to go with training, and they know that I have a certain style to my training. In wrestling, you'll learn there's a million different ways to train and there's a million different ways to learn. But nothing helps better than having a good foundation that's based in basics to help you build on with all these other training sessions and everything else and learning and advancing yourself. So, I mean, I appreciate everything the guys do, and I know they know where I want to go with my training, and I love every one of them to death.
And this is the type of training that someone would pay thousands of dollars for elsewhere. I mean, if you remember back when the WCW power plant was open, listening to Colt Cabana's podcast, I heard C.W. Anderson talking about how he went down to the power plant and it was like $2,000 just to get a tryout. Talk a little bit about your training. I know that you talked about how you never take money for it, and that, in my opinion, that's very honorable. So talk a little bit about the training and why you do it for free.
Well, the reason why I do it for free is I want everybody to have an option, because not everybody has the money to go out and get these big training sessions. I mean, believe me, I tell them, even with my training guys, if you can save up the money to go to some place like Shawn Michaels' school or Rikishi or something like that, to go there. I was like, if this is really your passion and you love it, save up and go. But at the same time, it's good to have a base foundation of indie wrestling and indie training before you step into those things. They are thousands of dollars, and not everybody has that money. And I know there's local companies around here that charge, $50 or whatnot, but they'll literally just have the person come in, beat them down, and then hope to God they quit and they made $50. Just like Tri-State Wrestling, where we make no money off these events, it all goes to charity. I don't want to make money off of these guys because they're just trying to live their dream. They're trying to get their foot in the door, and I wasn't charged to start my dream, and I'm not going to charge someone else to start their dream. And I will help them make it to their dream if they're willing to put in the time and the effort. Because, I've had some people where they just don't want to put in the time and the effort. They just think that they do backyard wrestling at their house with their brother on a mattress, and they're ready to have a match in a television show, ready to go on Raw. And it's not true, because it's a different setting from even going from your backyard to an independent scene in front of fans, because the fans perceive everything slower, so you have to work at a different pace than if you're just working in your backyard for yourself. And sometimes there's people that just don't have it cut out for them, or there's some people where they start out and it looks like they're never going to make it, and they bust their butts for 3-4 years and step into the ring. Matt Diamond's a perfect thing. I know Barry mentioned him, and I'm going to mention him again. Matt, when he first started, me and Barry had no plans on him ever making it, but he proved me wrong. This kid and me would set up the ring in 100-degree weather in the backyard, and he would train. He would call me all the time, "Hey, Steven, can we get the ring set up?" or "Hey, can we go over and train?" And I would. He would put in effort. It took him almost 5 years to get into the ring, to have his first match, but he never quit. And this was training 5-6 times a week, if not more, for 7-8 hours a day. And he just proved to us that he deserved it, and he has. He's one of our staple guys now, even though he's one of our bad guys, but he's still to this day one of our staples.
And that's another great segue, man. You're doing a great job. Talk a little bit about the dedication that it takes to do this type of work. And also, you guys have open tryouts every time that you're in town, but you've got a special one coming up on May 28th where some of the basics are going to get talked. Talk a little bit about that and what people, if they wanted to come out and be a part of Tri-State Wrestling, what can they expect?
Well, our training has advanced over the years. Like I said, as I was training these other people, I was getting training from people. It used to be just all about bumps, but I realized that all about bumps is just not cutting it anymore, because if you can't go out there and work a 10-minute match with somebody because your cardio is not good enough, that kind of hinders it. So now we're really focused in basics, not only in-ring stuff, we're focused on cardio. So this tryout's going to be completely different than anything ever that I've ever done in training. We're going to mainly focus that day on cardio. We're going to be running, jumping jacks, stuff like that. There might be some in-ring stuff. This is going to be our first big open tryout where people can just come in randomly, never had any training, and we're gonna try and help them out. Beforehand, they would contact me, I'd tell them to come in, and then I'd meet with them, and then we'd go from there. But this is just doors open. If you're in Vincennes, 2 o'clock, you want to come over, help us set up, get the ring ready, everything after that, we're going to start doing cardio. After that, we're going to get in the ring. We're going to bump around a little bit, just some basics. Probably not going to run any ropes or anything like that. But and then at the end of the day, we're going to have cuts, which everyone thinks, oh God, cuts. I'm not going to make it. You'd be surprised at who make it and who's not going to make it. But it's just, I offer it to anybody. Come in, guys. See if you got what it takes. If you really want to get in this business, not only are we doing a wrestler's class that day, we're also doing a referee class, and we're doing a manager's class. So even if you don't make it as a wrestler, you still have 2 other options to still get into this business. And even if you don't get inside the ring or on the outside walking around harassing people like Sweet Daddy, I'm always looking for new staff members. It takes a lot to run a business, to run this. We need 4 security guards at all times. We need someone to operate the camera, a bell person, a sound guy. We've got all these things. We've got an amazing announcer. I've got a great sound guy right now, but, we still need backups. What happens if they're sick on a Saturday or stuff like that? So we always need backups, and we're always looking. My Facebook is always open. It might take me a little bit to get back to people. I do have a life sometimes. But I always say just message me, and I'm more than welcome to talk to anybody about this and being part of the company.
All right, awesome. So now let's transition a little bit into your in-ring persona, your matches, if you will. Talk to me a little bit about Zane Arkham. How did that come about?
Well, actually, Zane was a long process. I started out as a ex-military person that had gone insane, and my name at the time was Section 8. And I ran with that forever. I mean, I had the military fatigue pants, and then I created my own shirt. And I even had my military boots transferred over to wrestling boots, had the soles replaced into a rubber sole for wrestling, and I ran for that. I had the Hannibal Lecter mask. I mean, I was crazy, and I ran with that for the longest time. And then I got to a point in my career where I met a guy named Bo Sawyer, and he's like, "Man, Steven, most people have names. You need to come up with an actual name, not just Zane Arkham. Zane Arkham needs to be your call name. It needs to be like Zane Arkham, Section 8, Section 8 something." I was like, all right, well, what do I want to do? Well, Zane's been my favorite name. If I ever have a boy, I'm naming him Zane. Zane's my favorite boy name ever. So I was like, all right, I'm going to be Zane. The last name was the hard thing. I think I went through like 30 different last names before I finally realized I love Batman, and I love all of that. I mean, I've got the Batman symbol tattooed on my chest. I played all the Batman games. I love Batman. And I thought of Arkham Asylum because of home of the insane. I was like, Zane Arkham. I pitched it to Bo, and Bo was like, actually, Steven, I think you could run with that. That's going to be a good name. So for the longest time, I was Section 8 Zane Arkham. And then over time, the Section 8 just dropped off, and I've been Zane Arkham. I'm still insane. I do some of the dumbest things you'll ever see in the ring. I still, from the day one, I've been a pain in Barry Baker's or Sweet Daddy B's butt. And to this day, I'm still the exact same thing. I always cause him problems. He always causes me problems. And that's been the ongoing story between me and him for the past 8 years. And the character development. I mean, I went from being just into the ring to behind the ring, to being outside the ring, doing all the stuff that I do now, to still doing both. And then it's been a long process, a long thing over 8 years. Excuse me. And it changes, it just tweaks a little bit every once in a while. And that's what I tell people is, when you create your gimmick, you start out with a base. Don't think this is going to be the same person you're going to have or the gimmick you're going to have 8 years down the road, because you're going to grow and you're going to advance and you're going to adapt and you're going to change. But you don't want to change drastically. You just want to start with your base and continue in one spot. Some people will come one section and then veer off into another gimmick and then veer off and veer back, and it's like, why'd you have to do all the turning? You could have just been your guy the whole time. But gimmick is really important, and I actually helped every one of the trainees create their gimmick. They sent me their ideas, and I helped them design a gimmick that based around them and what I thought would fit. Hunter Love, great guy. His gimmick is actually based off of his cousin who passed away from brain cancer, Gage Beesing. He loved pink and blue, so Hunter wanted to incorporate that into his tights, and so we found him some really amazing tights. And then we were going along with the name. He went with H Love for the longest time, but I told him, you need a first name. You need to, so they can connect. The fans can connect with you. So we decided to use his real name, Hunter, and then he still kept the last name Love. So he's Hunter Love, and he's just got a really good inspired gimmick. Matt Diamond, took him forever to create his gimmick, and he's still developing. I mean, even now, he started out with just straight black, and that's one of the biggest things you'll see in the indie wrestling is everyone's just like, all black, yes, I'm good. And I tried to keep collar and everything, so I told him, I was like, Matt, we're gonna change this up. And that's when he started bringing the yellow lantern into it. And so now he's got the gimmick where his power, he controls fear, and he's doing really good. It's a brand new gimmick, still fresh, but he's doing a very good job with it. And then you got Matt Dawson is his ring name. He's the redneck kid, great kid. He came to us from Kentucky. He plays football down in high school and everything like that. But he came in, he wanted to do kind of like the redneck cowboy gimmick, and minus the cowboy hat. He's kind of just more like the redneck. And he stepped it up, and he did it. He made it his own. I was really skeptical about it because, no offense, the cowboy gimmick's overdone sometimes, and the redneck gimmick's even more overdone. But he took it on his own. He's doing a good job.
And I got to say, the Southern Shiners are one of my favorite teams in TSW right now. So talk a little bit about, you talk about your gimmick and how it developed from this crazy guy into a more, I don't know, if I had to describe you, I would say that he is kind of psychopathic. I love it. But I'll never forget the first time I saw you was at February's Proving Grounds, February 2016. and first TSW show I'd ever been to, and at that point in the night, I hadn't been too impressed. And of course, maybe that was because I was spoiled, and I've seen 100,000 different wrestling things in my life. But when you came out, you had a match with Matt Diamond, who you just spoke about, and up until that point, there was really nothing spectacular that stuck out in my mind. But in that match, I'll never forget, you did the suplex on the floor. And for those who don't know, the floor in the Vincent's Eagles is not a soft floor. It's basically, what do they call that kind of floor?
It's concrete. It's a concrete floor with linoleum on top of it.
Yeah, so it's a hard floor. And I saw that and I was like, wow, holy cow. If I'd wanted to start a holy shit chant, I would have. So talk a little bit about some of the crazy things that your character does. I mean, you were telling me about, taking kendo sticks to the head and making old ladies say that wrestling isn't fake. Talk about some of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, over the course of the 8 years, I started out as a hardcore wrestler, which we all know. Those are the guys that just go out there and our blood, sweat, getting smacked with stuff, and I started out with that, and I ran with it for the longest time. I've been thrown off stages, through tables, I've been knocked off ladders, I've been thrown from the inside of the ring, outside, no pad. I've had flaming umbrellas broke over my head. I've been hit with barbed wire, thumbtacks, you name it, I've done it. And, I mean, for the longest time, that was the way I wrestled, and your body has a bump count, and mine took a beating in those matches, and so I finally started working smarter. I mean, I'll still go crazy. I mean, it's part of the business. Like you said, sometimes you need that moment to remember. You need something crazy or something over the top, the spot, to make you remember the night. And that's something that I always want to incorporate into my matches is I always want my matches to be remembered. It doesn't necessarily have to be something over the top where, I'm getting powerbomb through light tubes or whatever. It just needs to be something that sticks out and points out. I know the last time me and Zach had a match together, we had talked it over, and I was like, man, I want to do something that'll make people remember. And he had me powerbomb him through a fiberglass ladder. The ladder didn't break, so I had to powerbomb him again. It broke the second time. But I mean, it's just, that's the biggest thing is a lot of people go out there and they do what's called spots. They just do, suplexes and stuff like that. A spot is great, but if you don't do a big spot to make someone remember it, then all those little spots meant nothing. And you've got to tell a story with a match too. And what's the point of going out there and hitting 20 super kicks, a rock bottom, and all these other finishers? Okay, wow, okay, that was great. You just killed the rest of the show. You want to find something that's simple, but yet still over the top to make a point. And that's why, in that match, we did the suplex outside. Normally I take them. Sometimes Matt's taking them. I remember getting jumped on from cross. I've jumped off the top turnbuckle outside to somebody. And I feel really bad about this because me and the guy were wrestling. And the crowd, this was back before I started realizing we needed to push the crowd back a little bit. And his placement, I don't know if it was his placement wrong or I just jumped too high. I mean, I hit him. I did a crossbody, I did a flying clothesline from the inside of the ring, from top of the turnbuckle, outside. But when I hit, to save my knees, I did a spring roll. And when I rolled through, I kicked a fan in the face. I felt horrible because it was a little kid. I felt bad. Afterwards, I made up for it. But it's just like, you've got to do these big spots to get them to catch your eyes. There used to be a wrestler, I'm not going to mention his name for reasons, but he dove over, dove over the top turnbuckle and hit a dude outside, and this was at a Monroe show, and he got a holy shit chant. And I was just like, I was watching that match, and even I was like, that was awesome, good job. I went up and I saw a UWC show, and for most of the show, I sat down the entire time, because I've seen everything, and you've got to, if you can't make someone that's a wrestler, a boy, mark out, then you're not doing it good enough. For the main event, it was Sam Knight versus Blake Reed. And for that entire main event, I found myself on my feet standing up watching the match because they just did a phenomenal job, and they made me mark out. And that's what I'm looking for, is you've got to do something that makes them remember your name and your style and the match.
Absolutely, and you definitely did that with me. Now, I've got to have you tell the story about the lady who didn't believe that wrestling, or she called it fake. And I know with a lot of wrestlers, that's a point of contention because yes, the wrestling is scripted, and yes, there are storylines, but there's nothing fake about some of the bumps you guys are taking. I mean, I'll never forget when I first took my first bump in the ring last month at Proving Ground. It took my breath away. I did not expect it to hurt as much as it did. So I got to have you tell that story about this lady.
Okay, this is a good one, and I'll actually tag the person I was facing in the match. I was a TSW champion at the time, and the month before, something had happened, and I had separated my shoulder, so I was going to be out. Well, I decided to work a match because I wanted to drop the title in a match, not just dropping the title. So I worked a guy named Mitchell A.K.A. This guy loves kendo sticks. Well, beforehand, this old lady was sitting in the crowd, and she knew I was running the show and everything, and that I had a match later that night. And she was talking to me about how all wrestling was fake, and she didn't know why she was here. Well, in that match, Victor Kane, we were out in front of her, right in front of her. I made sure that we made a point to be right in front of her so she could see it. He snapped a kendo stick over my head, caused me to bleed. I had a huge knot on my head. I mean, it was legit gruesome. I mean, if you all don't know, kendo stick is not easy to break. So to have one get broke over your head takes some force and takes a lot of trust in the guy to do it without killing you. And after the match, the security guards came and they picked me up, and I said, no, we got to go over here and we got to sit right here in front of this. We need to go sit here next to this lady. And I sat down next to her, and I'm looking at her with my face covered in blood, and I was like, is wrestling fake now? And she's like, oh my God, no, it's not. Oh my God, you need to go see medical attention. I was like, I'll get it. Well, luckily at that time we had an EMT in the back, so I was able to go back there and get all patched up. And everyone, I didn't tell this part, but this is the funniest part. I'm back there, and everyone's taking care of me. And this patron from the bar walks up to me and goes, hey, what's your name? I said, Zane Arkham. He goes, no, it's not. It's Mr. Lump Lump. You got a huge lump on your head, and walks off. And I lost it because, I mean, even in all the destruction that I had just caused, people were still finding it funny. And, it was just great. It was a great moment between good guys, but, good friends doing a heck of a match and proving that what we do is not fake. Yes, like he said, it is scripted. We know. Sometimes we know how things are going to end. Sometimes I throw a monkey wrench in there in my booking, and you don't know how things are going to end. But wrestling is not fake, and I've got about 6 doctors that'll attest to that. I had funny story. I didn't tell this earlier. When I sprained my ACL back in October, I went to just a free clinic in Washington, where I'm from, and the doctor pulls up all my medical information from the hospital, looks at it, looks at me, looks back and goes, how the hell are you still walking? And I lost it because she was just so dumbfounded at all this long list. She said it was over 30 pages of injuries that I had sustained over my career. And she's like, I've seen people with less than this on disability. And I'm just like, nah, when you have a passion and a drive, you just go for it. But, wrestling is not fake. I mean, you get hurt. Yes, we try to teach you how to be safe out there, but accidents happen. And like he said, the floor is unforgiving, and even the ring is metal and wood. There's nothing in there. There's no springs. It's not like a giant pillow. I mean, it's metal and wood. I mean, we invite people to watch us set up the ring. You'll see it's metal and wood, and that's about it.
And, you talk about your injuries and how this doctor asks you how you're walking. Injuries are no joke anymore. WWE, they have the really strong concussion policy to the point where they're not allowing certain wrestlers to do certain moves. The Styles Clash is out. Seth Rollins' curb stomp got outlawed. Nobody will ever do a tombstone pile driver ever again. Talk a little bit about some of the injuries and some of the things that you've seen, and also kind of your attitude when it comes to injuries and being in the ring.
Yeah, like you said, I've seen a ton of injuries. I've seen a ton of concussions. I have a ton of concussions. That's why we don't take a lot of, even now, just because of the WWE, we've cut back shots to the head and things like that nature. And injuries happen. It's part of it. Fractured ribs. I mean, heck, I learned just a couple of years ago that you can twist a rib. I took a suplex on the floor wrong, and I twisted 6 ribs. Worst feeling in my life because I had to go to physical therapy to get them untwisted. But and injury, we take injuries very serious in the TSW. A lot of people think we don't, but we do. Sometimes we have an EMT on hand who wrestles for us. If not, we do have a medical kit. We do have a first aid kit. And I do know, like I said, with all my injuries, I know a lot of things. If not, we're not afraid to call an ambulance. We've had to call an ambulance a couple times. It's all about the health of the people working for us. And sometimes, guys, we do risk it, and we have to take care of them. A couple shows ago, Patrick Taylor, one of the Chaos Carnival, he took a bad bump. I can't remember how. I don't know if it was he got thrown out of the ring and he hit his head on the side of the ring. Like I said, it's metal and wood, and he got a really serious concussion, and he's out of action until October because of it. And, we told him, hey, you've got a concussion, go to the hospital. His girlfriend at the time was there. So she was able to take his girlfriend, who they're still together. I don't want to say at the time. I don't want to make like they're broke up. Nothing. They're still together. They're still doing great. She and him and a couple of other people took him to the hospital where, he found out that he had a very serious concussion. And, it even, like you said, guys, it happens. You can always try to protect yourself, but I sprained my ACL in a battle royal getting thrown over the top rope. You don't think nothing. One little twist. Look at Seth Rollins. He did his normal. He does that move all the time that he did to Kane that ripped his ACL. And I mean, just one little hair of a fraction off of landing or not landing properly, and you will do some serious damage to your body. Your body's not meant to do the crazy stuff that we do, but we do it anyways for the fans and for the love of the business. And so, we take injuries very serious. Like I said, we do have a first aid kit, bleeding, stuff like that. We make sure people are taken care of and things are covered up. I mean, I've had tons of injuries where I've cut myself and bandaged myself up and continued on with the show. I mean, the show must go on sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And, something you were telling me earlier, if you're injured, stay out of the ring till you're healed.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, take it from me. I've been, and I will openly admit this, I have been straight retarded when it comes to injuries, and I will come back way before I'm ready to. But my advice to everybody is if you get injured, stay out until the doctors clear you. I know Daniel Bryan is a good case. He was cleared by one doctor, but the doctor there wouldn't clear him. The doctor at the WWE wouldn't clear him. So he went to 4 different ones, and finally he found one that said, no, you're not okay. And that's the same way we do it is, we want you guys to be okay. And we're not like a school, and, this isn't an actual job. This is your hobby. But at the same time, we do listen to the doctors. And if the doctor says, hey, no, you just can't wrestle, we're not going to wrestle you. We want you to protect yourself because in the long run, if you want to continue to do this, wrestling will always be there. But if you destroy your body to where it can't handle the business, then you're going to be out way before you're ready to. And that's not something I want to see on anybody because I know how much I love this business and how much the people around me love this business. And, I have a couple friends that are injured right now, and I'm just like, guys, stay off your feet, stay out of the ring. I know that drive to get back in there, and I know it sucks to sit in the back and not be able to be part of the show. I know I've been there. I just came off the injury, and now I'm on the list again. And it's like, you guys have got to remember that this is your livelihood, and, your family and stuff like that. You've got to remember that they come first. Just like Daniel Bryan said, he's looking to make a family. Yeah, that comes first. It does. Wrestling will always be here. Let's make sure that you're always here for your family and wrestling. So if you need to take the time, if the doctor says, hey, you're going to be out 9 months, take the 9 months off. Recover. You can still come to shows. You can still watch. You can still be a part of, your companies. But take the time off to heal. Go get healed up properly. Because the worst thing you could do is come back early and not be ready and make it worse and make it to where you have to end your career completely because you just didn't wait that one more month to be 100%. You came back at 95. 95 is not good enough. You want that 100%, guys. I've came back to this ring several times at 95%, and I will attest that 95 is not good enough. You'll still be in a lot of pain, and that pain will cause you to slip up and do something stupid and get hurt again, and you'll be out even longer. So wait until you're 100% and come back. That doesn't mean that you can't be a part of the show or you can't be a part of the company. Still come and show your support. But make sure you're 100% before you step back through those ropes against your next opponent.
And so you talked about, you're on the shelf now. Why is that?
Well, long story short, in January, I was having major headaches, and I worked a match against Zach Hogan, and it got worse. And I knew something was wrong, but me being the stubborn person that I am, I didn't go get it checked out. Well, I was coming back from work one day. It was after midnight, so of course car lights, they were just killing me. So I swung into the local ER up in Washington, and they did a CAT scan of my head, and they found a 4-centimeter mass on my brain, and immediately shipped me down to St. Mary's in Evansville. I was down there. They did a bunch of MRIs, blood work, things of that nature to try to figure out what I had. I talked to an oncologist, which is normal when they find a mass. They didn't know what it was. St. Mary's didn't feel comfortable doing the surgery because of where the mass is. It's located directly in the middle of my head. So, I mean, there was no safe way to get to it. So they sent my case up to Indy to a specialist, Dr. Daniel Fulkerson, who is a special with endoscopic surgery. And I went up to see him on February, I think 26th. It was a Thursday. And he looked at my MRIs and he told me what we needed to do. And lo and behold, that Monday I was in surgery. I have a scar on the top of my head from it. It is brain surgery. He went in. Not only did he take a piece of the mass in my brain, he also had to relieve pressure because where it's setting at is stopping the spinal fluid from draining out of my head back into my spine, and it's also setting right on my optic nerves, causing me to have slight double vision. So he had to go in, relieve pressure. So he poked a little hole in a membrane to drain the spinal fluid, which the headaches are gone now, which thank God, hallelujah, those things were horrible. And they took a piece of the mass and had it tested. I just got the results back a couple weeks ago. I got the results back on a Tuesday. He called me and he said, "Hey, Stephen, I wanted to let you know that it is what we thought it was. It is cancerous. You have what's called a germ cell tumor on your brain. It's the only one I have," which thank God I'm proud of that one. They did a full body MRI. Cost me almost $20,000. Expensive procedure. But it is the only mass I have. So he's like, "You need to go see a specialist." I got in to see Dr. Anthony Stevens down in Evansville, a great oncologist. He's the one that told me that it's good news. It is cancer, but it's the best type of cancer to have because it is curable as long as it reacts well to the radiation treatment, which I will be, starting that soon. Actually, tomorrow morning is my official first day. I've been talking with doctors, going to the doctors pretty much every day for the past week, getting everything ready for tomorrow's first huge thing. So they're saying 6 to 8 weeks as long as it reacts well. So as long as it reacts well, after that I will be cured. And they said I'll probably live another 40 to 50 years. I told them, let's not get too pushy. That's a long life. I don't know about that yet with the crazy stuff I do. But yeah, so that's the reason why I'm out of the shelf right now. I'm still a big part of the TSW, running behind the scenes, still running training. I can't bump. I'm on a strict no bump thing because of it being in my head still. I can't drink any alcohol or anything like that because it affects with the brain and could cause me problems. So I'm still doing what I can do, still being part as big as I can, but no bumping and no in-ring action, so no matches for me anytime soon.
What did the doctors tell you moving forward? Is this something that you can safely do? Is wrestling something that you can safely do for the rest of your life?
Yeah, they said be smart because, like I said, I do have a long list of injuries. A lot of people, and I even had Zach Hogan believing this, because that last match I had with Zach, he did a pile driver on the concrete floor at the Vincennes, and when I landed in the hospital, I had him believing it was because of him. And he was tore up. Me and Zach are really close. We beat the hell out of each other in the ring, but we have mutual respect for each other. And he really thought it was because of him. But they say that this type of tumor is based around smoking, which I did smoke, and then after I lost my last relationship, I got back into smoking heavy, and then I quit, and that's when the headache started, and I just thought it was nicotine withdrawal, but then I come to find it was something else. But they said that, wrestling had nothing to do with this. I know a lot of people are thinking, I've had tons of people, family included, saying, "Oh, it's because of that stupid wrestling you do." No, wrestling had nothing to do with this. It was cigarette smoke and smoking. So, I'm a poster child for not smoking, and if you want to smoke, that's on you. I don't care. But at the same time, I know what it causes. It's in my head. I'm having the problems with it now. So, I tell people, just think of your future. But, no, wrestling had nothing to do with it. And they said that I can go back to wrestling and doing what I love. That's another thing I love about Dr. Stevens. I sat there and talked about wrestling, and he talked about golf. And he's just like, you have a real big passion for this. So he goes, let's get you back to it as soon as we can. And let's get you back to doing what you love.
That's awesome. So we're running out of time here, Steve. Talk a little bit about how people can support you. Where can they find you on Facebook? I know you've got a lot of medical expenses, a lot of things that are coming up for you. Just talk about how our listeners can support you.
Well, and that's the thing that it's been my biggest battle is to ask for help, because I mean, I don't like to, but like you said, I haven't been working. I just got back to working, which, working with radiation treatments is going to be interesting. But if they want to, they can find me on Facebook, Stephen Mitchell. I also have Zane Arkham. They can go to my GoFundMe account, GoFundMe, Stephen Mitchell. They can do it that way. Or if you come to a TSW show, I mean, I'm always there. I've had friends and family just randomly show up at my house and give me money. And I don't like asking for money, which, like everybody knows, money makes the world go round. I hate that that's the truth, but it is. It's the sad thing. The only real support that I even ask for, like I said, it's not even money that I want. I don't even care. I just want people to know that I support them, and I just want them to support me too, and to have my back and to be there, because this thing, it's hard. And I learned about it and I was devastated, but at the same time, a couple days later, I found out the good news. But it's still a battle, and I just want to know that people are standing beside me and behind me and helping me through it. I don't care if you give me money. I mean, I can survive. I'm a survivor. I've done it. Believe me, I got rid of a lot of stuff when this happened, and I'm down to the bare minimum. It's what I need to survive is what I'll do to survive. So I just tell everybody, just support me and support what I love. If you can't support me, go out and support Tri-State Wrestling. We don't make any money off of these events, but we do these events to help others. Our next event is to help a preschool with raising money to take kids on field trips and to get their graduation stuff. And, it's that stuff that hits home for me. Last show, I don't know how many times I almost cried talking to people, because it was just such a great turnout for autism awareness, and we raised so much good money off of the items that we auctioned off. And then we had Michael K-Singer there doing all these awesome drawings, and it was so surreal to me to see that all these people were coming to support the company that I love and the thing that I support the most, Tri-State Wrestling.
All right. I got two more things I want to talk to you about, and I forgot them, and I was going to do your promotion at the end, but I forgot these two things, and I wanted to make sure we got them in before we're done here. Talk a little bit about the induction of Eric Marlowe into the TSW Hall of Fame, and kind of what that means to you guys.
Well, Eric, we did a show for Eric. He was battling lymphoma, a blood cancer, and unfortunately for us, on March 27th, he lost that battle to the cancer. So this year, in the 2016 class of Tri-State Wrestling Hall of Fame, he will be inducted. I will personally be the one inducting him. Eric came to every one of our shows. He was a TSW diehard fan. He loved the company. He loved what we stood for, and he loved, the wrestlers. He loved to get in there and talk to everybody. And it was just, when we do a show from somebody, we connect with them. When it's a person, when it's an organization, it's a little bit different. But when it's a person, you really get attached to them and you get connected to them. So when you see that they're going through a tough time, you want to help them and support them. And then when you see when they lose their battle, you want to support their family. I mean, I stopped before I came over here. I stopped at Eric's showing, and I showed my support to the family and, my condolences for their loss, and Tri-State Wrestling's condolences, because I am a figurehead for Tri-State Wrestling. What I do in society really affects Tri-State Wrestling. And, I want to always put our best foot forward. And so this year, we just gave Eric the TSW Fan Appreciation Award, but he was maybe one of our biggest fans. But I want him forever to be inducted into our Hall of Fame and remembered as one of the greatest TSW fans to ever impact our lives. So that's why this year I will be inducting him as my special person, because I normally induct one person a year, as my special person into the Hall of Fame.
That's awesome, and it really speaks to TSW and the character of the people there, that you go the extra mile for those type of people, and for the people that you help, and for the people that have been supportive of TSW. It really speaks to everything you guys are about, and I personally respect that tremendously. All right, last thing. You have the honor of being my WrestleMania week guest, so we're going to do some rapid-fire WWE WrestleMania predictions. Pre-show match, Ryback versus Kalisto.
I'm going to give it to the big guy, Ryback.
I would go Kalisto there, mostly because it makes more sense to have Kalisto, in my opinion, as the champion, and he's done a great job.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go 7-man ladder match. Who you got in that one?
Owens. Owens through and through. I just think he's a dominant Intercontinental Champion, and I think he's gonna continue his reign.
All right. Divas triple threat match.
Oh, Becky Lynch.
Really? Because I go Sasha Banks, and then they bring Bayley up off the main roster, and then it's like, this crazy Iron Man. You get all that cool stuff that you had in NXT. I don't know. That's what I'm hoping for anyway. All right. And then the big three, Ambrose and Lesnar.
Ambrose, I think he's just crazy enough to do it. I really do. I think he's crazy enough to do it.
And he's you incarnate, right?
Yeah.
All right. Roman Reigns and Triple H.
From a standpoint, it's like I want Triple H because he's, but I know they're going to go with Reigns because he's the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hate that they're pushing him down our throats.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. We'll see how the Dallas crowd reacts to him. And finally, the one I'm most looking forward to, I think, because I'm a major mark, Shane O'Mac versus The Undertaker.
I hope Shane, just because I want to see what he brings to the WWE. Maybe he can make it not so stale anymore. So I hate to see The Undertaker. I know his WrestleMania career is on the line, but it's like the WWE needs something new in a new direction, and I think Shane can do it.
All right. Steve, I appreciate you being on.
Hey, no problem. Thank you for having me.
Huge thanks to Steve for being with us today. If you have a few bucks to spare, check out his GoFundMe page by clicking on the link on this article at 10 Count Blog and help him out with some of his medical expenses. Also, be sure to check out Tri-State Wrestling's upcoming event, Tag Team Warfare, Saturday, April the 23rd at the Vincennes Eagles Club. Doors open at 6, bell time is at 7. Admission is $5. A couple of other upcoming events in the area. New Wave Pro Wrestling is having a free fundraising event at Indiana State University in Terre Haute, April the 9th. They have some VIP tickets to give away. Be sure to check them out on Facebook for more details. Bell time is at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Coliseum Championship Wrestling presents Thunderstruck April the 16th at the Coliseum at 300 Court Street in Evansville. Doors open at 6:30 Central Time. Bell time is at 7:30. Tickets are $10 at the door, $5 with military or veteran ID. Kiddos under 5 are free. If you like what you're hearing on our podcast, be sure to check us out at 10countblog.wordpress.com. Hit us up and give us a like on Facebook at facebook.com/10countblog or follow us on Twitter at 10countblog. We love photos and videos from local wrestling events or any wrestling event really. Feel free to share those with us. Remember, we're always looking for contributors to the blog. Write something for us and it will be considered for submission. All entries can be emailed to 10countblog@gmail.com. Once again, huge thanks to Steve Mitchell for being on with us this week, and thank you to all of our loyal listeners. Enjoy WrestleMania and try not to riot too much when Roman Reigns wins. This has been the 10 Count Podcast.